Yeah, I'm ready.
Coming.
Every description of God that I've heard holds God to be all-powerful, very typical, and all good. And I see earthquakes and tornadoes and disease, childhood leukemia, and I see all of this and I say, I do not see evidence of both of those being true simultaneously. If there is a God, the God is either not all-powerful or not all good.
G'day and welcome to this episode of An Atheist, a Believer and a Pastor Walk Into a Bar. I'm your host, Peter Rowe. That was, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson there with our intro. And I've been saying for a while that we should dig deeper to find out if what he's saying according to Scripture is accurate or true. So we're actually going to tackle that next Wednesday. That should be fascinating because Luke will be back with us. He is back in the country, but he's not with us tonight, probably absolutely suffering dreadfully from jet lag, I would imagine. So we'll do that next Wednesday. So thanks for your company on this Wednesday night, the 22nd of January, 2025. Just gone 8 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time, broadcasting from Perth, WA, live on YouTube. We'd love you to be involved in tonight's episode, which is titled, Have We All Been Trumped? We had a terrific podcast last week with Fenton, who was one of our regular contributors to our podcast, talking about flat earther debate. That is an absolute ripper. It was great. If you haven't checked it out yet, go and have a look at our library and you'll see on YouTube, you better track it down all about flat earth. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head. Anyway, it was great. Thanks again, Fenton. Hopefully we might hear from him tonight. And you too, if you want to join in, please do. Tell us what you really think. So have we all been trumped? Taking a hard look at power, privilege, and the way we treat our planet with Donald Trump's latest inauguration featuring a backdrop of billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. We ask, who really owns the world? Do the wealthiest and most powerful get a call at all the shots deciding how we use or abuse the Earth's resources? Does the belief that the world was made for human youth justify exploiting natural resources, eating whatever we want, and ignoring pollution and climate change? And when figures like Musk make questionable gestures on a global stage, does it reveal something deeper about entitlement and control? Or was it just an awkward moment? Was it shoulder twitch? You know, we don't know. Tonight, we unravel the connections between power, environmental responsibility, and the self-appointed rulers of the modern world. Already, Trump has granted freedom to those that chose to disrespectfully act unbelievably at attacking Capitol Hill after Trump incited violence, even though there were innocent police officers and others injured as they tried to stop them in the line of duty. They were attacked by thugs, and Trump just pardoned most of them, if not all of them. Why? Does he really think that they were unfairly jailed? I doubt it. Or is he just keeping the right sort of people on side so that they can owe him big time down the track? No doubt we'll find out in time. And the scariest thing of all is that he has no opposition, politically wise, in what appears now to be the perfect storm. A power-hungry maniac with no political opponents is free to do what he likes, when he likes, with no sense of what's right or wrong or good or bad. I feel so sorry. We have friends in America, and there's lots of them. They have gullibly if there's such a word, being sucked in by this man. We all saw it coming, and that didn't stop anyone from ensuring this idiot is in control of the biggest military and economy in the world. We should all be very alarmed and concerned. So let's throw the doors open and see who's game to come in from outside. Rich is with us, as is Jace, and Suresh joins us for a quick visit tonight. Welcome, gents.
I see you, Pete, and others. Yep.
Fabulous.
Jace, was that a salute of some kind?
Just waving, Suresh, just waving.
Beautiful. Suresh, you are just with us for a short visit tonight. We appreciate any time that you do spend with us. So let's kick off with you. What's your biggest concern about having Trump in power?
I think one of the things that I've thought about quite a long time, at the time that the Soviet invasion of Ukraine happened, there was a lot of talk about oligarchs and the oligarchy and how these people in Russia were, the Russian oligarchs, etc. And ever since that time, I've wondered why we don't use that term to describe people in Western civilization. The behavior of those people is not a lot different to what we see, and the term oligarch has become such a despised person, yet we never use that to describe Gina Reinhardt, Vicky Forrest, Trump, or all of those people. So, I guess it's part of that othering of people. That's the Russians. They're the oligarchs. We're not. So the very fact that they're trying their best to distance themselves from a label that suggests that they are objects of hate suggests that they are trying to hide something and are manipulating and using their power. And we see the same rollout in places like India, a nation of 1.4 billion people, where the wealth is concentrated amongst possibly no more than about 1 or 1.5%, maybe 2% of the population, and that wealth is now gone right around the world. But it has worried me greatly over a long time that so much of our decision making, our control over all of what are assets of the human race are in the hands of a very, very few people. And that's concerning.
That's an interesting point that you bring up regarding Reinhardt and Twiggy Forrest. And we would never have considered calling them that.
Yes.
Yet, if you look at the clear definition, do you see that there's a positive and a negative? Do you think there are positive attributes of oligarchs, or is it just seen because we know the people that we're talking about, particularly from the Russian perspective, aren't the nicest kind of people? Yes, they are rich by definition, but can you be a nice oligarch, I guess is my question.
I don't think I guess the societal definition of oligarchy suggests that it is someone who has amassed an enormous amount of wealth and then use that wealth for the purposes of influencing government so as to be able to garner even further wealth. So I guess if that's the accepted definition, but is Gina Reinhardt doing anything different? She is able to influence government policy, and she's able, and so is Andrew Forrest, and so and I guess it concerns me when there is the supposed separation of power that exists, but that separation has been completely blurred by the oligarchs, including Trump, because Trump's crossed over from a business background into now having complete control over all of the assets of the country. So I think can they be a friendly a nice oligarch? I don't think so. On the classical definition of oligarchy, I think it is one that is manipulative and someone who is using it to their own advantage.
You can have good influence over governments, though, with the best interest of the government at hand. It's not, and it would hard to imagine just how when you compare the Russians to people like Gina Reinhardt and Twiggy Forrest. There seems to be a different levels, if you like, of oligarchy, whether it's only ever the intent of manipulation and corruption. And I think corruption is a word that you can put, firmly in the hands of the Russians who are doing it. But it's hard to imagine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge fan of either of those people in Western Australia, but influence in government can be good if there's a positive outcome, is what I'm saying. It's not all bad, but it certainly can be.
That's true. You could be an advocate, and yeah. So you are advocating for the common good as opposed to, and I guess advocating for the common good rather than advocating to garner further wealth, at the expense of the lay person. So, and to some extent, I guess would the church be seen as one of those people that could be influencing, and so therefore, hopefully, for the better good.
Well, certainly the Catholic Church is both wealthy and influential in politics right around the world, so they fit that label as well.
It's they do. So they are very influential, but their influence is for the good. Oligarchy has somehow been taken to be something that is the influence is used for the purposes of amassing personal wealth. But when I look at the definitions online, there isn't anything to suggest that it's about. In Russia, it happens to be about private acquisition of state assets, but it is about powerful men who happen to pool the resources of the country's various, I guess, sectors. So is Trump would have to be seen as an oligarch.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the words.
I think he's sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
That vision of Zuckerberg, Musk, and Bezos behind him, the privileged elite, that just says it all right there. It's got nothing to do with whether they like him or not. They understand that if they're not in bed with him from get-go, he can damage them incredibly. So they just should. That is the ultimate. But it's not even. They're not even hiding. They just look at us. No. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Blatant hypocrisy.
Oh.
I mean, Zuckerberg actually banned him from Facebook.
And then some of the three actors who have been appointed advisors as well. Mel Gibson, one of them. I can't remember who the other two were. It's actually going to be more entertaining than it was the first time that clown was the president of the United States. This is next level. This is people saying, what can you do in 4 years? Look what he did in one day. An extraordinary man, just capable of just whatever he feels like doing. How scary is that? Rich, what's your biggest worry about having Trump? Where do you start?
Yeah, for me, I think one of the things that troubles me a bit is obviously what he directly does, but it's the overflow into the emboldening of what were previously shameful fringe groups that had to keep quiet because society would just, shun them, rightly so. But I don't know if we want to go straight away, but Elon Musk's lovely salute. look, whatever he meant by it, it doesn't matter in this context, because he says, no, it was this, and everybody's explaining it away. But every right-wing racist group, literally, these are quotes from them saying, finally we can come out. Oh, we're back, baby. Look, what's this all? Because they know what that is. You know, the Roman salute is a fascist salute. It's got actually nothing to do with Rome. The Romans didn't actually, there's no evidence they actually did that. Something that came out in the 20th century and Mussolini sort of made popular, and it's a calling card for them. And whatever the official denouncements and even if Elon says no, I'm not what I was doing, every single racist is out there celebrating and taking a step forward into society. That's the real danger, is the fringe groups that rightly should be hiding in the dark now have ventured out into the sunlight in all different areas. You see it in all groups. You know, I've seen it in the church, in the evangelical side of the church, just utterly ridiculous things, awful things that would get you excommunicated 10 years ago.
Yep.
People are standing in the pulpit doing. It is. Speaking as if I was speaking as a Christian, I would say this is the judgment of God against the church, when its leaders stand up and blaspheme from the pulpits in such a way. It's just incredible. So Trump can do what he likes, but that's a society just oozing out its darker side.
I mean, Elon Musk is a loose unit at the best of times. He is absolutely disowned by so many. Thinking on something I must investigate too. I actually heard a story that apparently it wasn't Musk that came up with the whole electric car Tesla idea in the first place. It was a couple of other guys, but we'll look into that further because it's fascinating. But you won't often hear me on this podcast quoting scripture. But there is one that stands out with these guys, and it goes along the lines of avoid the appearance of evil. So as were these idiots on this P&O cruise wearing, you know, the whole KKK thing with the holes cut out in the face. That's when you've got to stop and think, can this be construed as something else other than us having fun at a Christmas party? Yes. Could Musk have not done that, or did he deliberately try and think under the carpet, as it were, to get in like a sleazeball to try and get more customers who are on his side to buy his product, to make him even more rich by getting them on side because look how cool I am? Or is he just completely stupid and doesn't understand the power of that?
For me, like if I did it, like let's give him the ultimate benefit of the doubt that all of the things they say about him is true. He was actually just going, you have my heart, and you know, you obviously put your hand out in a sort of like, maybe it was all like that. And any decent human being would go, I am completely horrified that people are emboldened by this. So my apology wouldn't be, you liberals are taking it all out of context. And I would say I am horrified. And if any racist group takes this as a courage to come out, you're absolutely wrong. Get back into the darkness where you belong. You won't hear anything like that from that. So therefore, my conclusion is, I don't think it was a mistake. I don't think it was some innocent gesture, because an innocent gesture would result in a very strong apology. You don't see that. You see doubling down and an attack on the very people who are like, maybe you don't want to do racist, fascist salutes, dude. And he attacks the people who say you shouldn't do that in a national forum instead of denouncing the horrors that he's allowing to come out.
Yeah, power corrupts. We all know that, and often people like that just get so powerful and so rich they can't draw that line between what is acceptable, what is complete and utter insanity. They lose the perspective of understanding what other people are saying and thinking. for him to do that on what was the biggest stage in the world, possibly one of the most viewed things in the history of humankind, you couldn't have picked a worse. The ramifications from this, as you said, Rich, are going to be enormous.
The one thing that's also worrying on Trump 2.0 is that he's tried to legitimize all of his work by surrounding himself with brown people. You know, the number of Indians in his administration is absolutely frightening. 9 hours ago,
According to Elon, they're the only smart people, Suresh.
9 hours ago, India has actually said that they're going to take back 18,000 people of Indian descent who have gone into the US supposedly illegally. I'm just trying to come to terms with Narendra Modi, who is no different to Trump and no different to the oligarchs. He's now gone along with this thing, and Indian citizens account for about 3% of all unlawful crossings encountered by US Border Patrol.
Wow.
So they're now going to take back 18,000 from there into a country that's already, absolutely smashed to the seams. Take another 18,000. It's not going to make a lot of difference there. But yeah, it's legitimizing yourselves. You've got lots and lots of Indian techies who are incredibly wealthy from having exploited the American markets, and he's got them all in his administration.
I must admit, I was quite surprised to see your face tonight, Suresh. I thought he might have already got to you. Jason, what does it mean to you, Jace?
I got a couple of perspectives on this, as you could imagine. Look, the first one is I just want to touch on Elon Musk. Imagine having the money to solve world hunger and not. Yeah. Even if you just used a portion of your wealth, which is now, coming up on $1 trillion personal wealth, and you don't use your powers for good. I mean, it just beggars belief, because you could use half of that and solve problems for so much of the world. Set up women's shelters around the world. Set up programs to eliminate hunger or disease around the world, or even just in America, which is becoming a third world country on its own. And that leads me to my next point. It's the very people who have voted Trump in who are going to be facing the consequences of their own actions very, very soon. The elimination of the Affordable Care Act, the elimination of Medicare, Medicaid, the elimination potentially of a lot of the veterans' rights that they've got, the elimination of immigrants who do the vast majority of the work that most Americans don't want to do. So when he talks about the reduction in inflation, that is impossible when you implement tariffs, number one, and you deport all of the people that are doing the cheap labor. That's right. There's just... Then I'll go to my final point for this particular episode. If you go back 18 months and have a look at what happened when Elon Musk purchased Twitter. Now, at the time, everybody went, this is a disaster. This was a really bad business decision. But in reality, when you whack on the retrospectoscope and you have a look at exactly what went on here, virtually all social media is now owned by right-wing fascist oligarchs. Every single one of them. And now Facebook has come along and said, right, we're going to remove moderation. It's now all about, customer fact-finding and what. That's all completely rubbish. None of that's going to work. I'm already looking at moving away from all of those social media platforms. The only one that's currently left, because even with TikTok, which went dark just a few days ago, as it came back, suddenly there were all these links within TikTok about linking it with your Facebook account. Although it hasn't been announced yet, my gut feel is that Meta now owns TikTok America. Yet to be seen. but I think that's the way that they've managed to come back again. There's only one social media platform now left where you can still have your say, and it's an open source platform, which means it cannot be purchased by any of these oligarchs or rich people. And I encourage everyone, including you three and everybody else who's watching, to go and check it out. I've been on there for a little while. It is really good. It's called Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Go and join up. Go and join up. Find your people. They're virtually all your people, but find the people that you know and grow that network, because that is the only channel now for independent news, independent analysis, and communicating without having the spectre of the oligarchs controlling the narrative, as they like to say.
What would you liken it to? What's the closest format?
Well, at the moment, it's like Twitter, but they have just announced a video service that's going to be much like TikTok / Instagram, because there's some, like, Instagram stole a lot of what TikTok does, but that free-form video format is going to be linked into Blue Sky, and I think that's going to become very powerful. And certainly all of the, for want of a better term, the influencers that I follow online, who all tend to be progressives, they've all now moved across. They're doing a bit on YouTube, but they're primarily now on Blue Sky. But there's a problem with that, Pete. If we abandon all of those platforms, you're kind of leaving it to the right-wingers to control the message. Right. And unfortunately, there's a cohort of people that sit between the progressives and the right wing, which are the mums and dads and people who are perhaps a little more easy to influence. And the only people now that are going to be delivering the message are the right-wing news platforms and right-wing fascist dickheads. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just for information also, Blue Sky, as I understand it, is what the Americans call a benefit corporation, which is not dissimilar to a not-for-profit here in Australia. So it's a benefit corporation, which means that it can only use its profits for public good.
But what's the public good, Suresh? That's subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, look, that's promising, but it's a listed company, it's a corporate, listed, and it's owned by a chap named Jay Graber. Yeah, I had a look at it and was concerned. There was a lot of talk about it being Russian owned, but it turned out it's not.
My biggest concern with what I'm seeing in the world and the incredible acceleration since technology sort of seemed to be, when it first started, climbing up the hill, and now it's racing down at a zillion miles an hour. I see the end of innocence of humanity. I'm old enough to remember the days when there was no technology, when life was very simple. It's incredible. What I've witnessed in my lifetime is freaky. God knows what it's going to be like for our grandchildren and their children. That with artificial intelligence, with names up there in lights like Trump and Zuckerberg and Musk and Bezos, it's just the innocence of humanity and people, those simple things that are a part of our everyday lives, are in danger of disappearing. God knows what it's going to end up being like, because it won't stop. No one.
Well, Dutton's already copying the Trump tactics.
Sorry?
Dutton is already copying Trump tactics.
Of course. Yeah. And why wouldn't you? It's win at all costs. They don't don't worry. Australia is just a Trump light is what we'll call it, because he's showing people how to manipulate the system and become powerful. And every politician, regardless of who they are, inevitably wants to become in power and to be able to, whether it's because they want to be rich or whether they want to be successful or whether they want to actually make a change in the country. I don't know what the result is going to be, but I'd be very interested to see the next dirt-filled voting. We have to vote.
Make one point. Just 1 point, and this is me now being absolutely adamant that we've got an issue here. The Democrats are at fault in the United States. It's their fault, because they were pussies it's all well and good to be progressive, to be woke, to be empathetic and compassionate and caring and wanting the best for people. But when you're facing up against militant thugs who are prepared to lie and prepared to be deceitful, there is no point in taking the high road. You are not going to win. The low road, unfortunately, is always going to win, and this is proof positive of that. And I think here in Australia, for a lot of us who are progressive and have tried to be as nice as possible for the longest time and challenge people with logic and the Socratic method and the various different strategies we've got for trying to share the objective truth and make people understand that science is a process and that facts do change because that's progress. All of that is failing to work. We have a severe problem with the way that news services like Sky News and Fox and the newspapers are delivering information that is tainting people in a way that we can't argue with. So it's really important, I think, and certainly the stance that I'm taking going forward, to become what I'm going to refer to as a militant do-gooder. I'm not going to shut up anymore. I'm actually going to be in the face of these people because it's the only way to fight back. There's no point in saying, you take the low road, I'll take the high road. It doesn't work anymore. Whatever has gone wrong, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
so
that's a part of what I'm talking about.
Start standing up.
It's in that innocence. It's no longer a level playing field almost in any aspect. I just want to put a shout out to, if you're watching tonight on YouTube, we are talking about all sorts of things. Basically, I guess they are connected to what we're talking about with what's happening in America, which is going to impact the rest of the world, whether we like it or not, whether it's a little bit, whether it's a lot. I'd be nervous if I lived in Greenland at the moment. So if you want to be a part of it, and please jump on board, ask a question, give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you if you're watching on YouTube. It is a live podcast, and we want you to be a part of it. So if you can. Question I wanted to pose to you, and we'll start off with Suresh again because he does have to go shortly. What do you think the reason is? Do you think that Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Musk have sat down and thought, guys, between the three of us, the whole world's wealth, everyone probably doesn't even come close to what we are able to do. Do you reckon they could sit down and say, why don't we be the heroes of this earth and just completely and utterly transform every single bad thing that there is? Trump's come out and said with AI he's going to cure cancer. What do you think they could ever have that conversation, or do you think they're not the slightest bit interested in humanity whatsoever?
I don't think that they have any interest in humanity whatsoever. When you look at what has happened with Musk, he's been elevated by Trump to a level where he now wants to influence the British government. He's now supporting Nigel Farage.
Oh, really?
Bankrolling the man. What's he got to do with England?
Right.
And yet, so he's. I don't think the three of them have the intellectual capacity to be able to collude with each other. I think they just hate anyone who appears to be wealthier than them, and they all would like to consider themselves. And look, they're in it purely for themselves. They have no interest in anyone else. Bezos, again, Jace, as you said, you have the capacity in one hand of being able to cure world poverty. What do? You arrange to take a spaceship out into outer space. Just extraordinary. They have no interest whatsoever in humanity. They have no interest in anyone but themselves.
And look, that is a fairly common thread with wealth. I had my dad's brother was filthy rich. He was a chemist, a pharmacist during the war, and just ended up with a bucket load of money. his sandals were held together with wire, and he used to drive literally. He's no different than someone on the street, with all due respect to people who are homeless, just to stereotype them. But that gives you an idea about what. So there was no sharing around with wealth, and I think that that's one of the reasons why people are so wealthy, because they're often stingy. So I'm not surprised by your response. It was almost a rhetorical question, in the sense that they are not. I would have thought, out of all of them, until Elon Musk lost the plot about 5 years ago, he seemed to be a fairly normal guy, bringing some good news to the world of wanting to transmit Wi-Fi through through satellites for everyone on the planet, and I'm looking after the environment with electric cars and all that. But now, the more I see it, they're the kind of people I don't think enough wealth will ever be enough.
Mm.
You can't have enough wealth when you're that greedy.
Well, if $1 billion isn't enough, you're not going to stop, are you?
And then look, it gets to the point where money probably isn't the objective. Power is more important to those people. As Suresh said, if anyone who wants to get involved with what's his name, Farage? I mean, wow. Why would I be surprised with that idiot? I mean, my God.
Yeah. Prior to Reagan, the top tier tax rate in the United States was well above 60-70%.
Yeah.
And then under Reaganomics, it was reduced down, and it's kept on getting reduced down. But if they increase those income rates back up again, that might go some way to start addressing some of the problems, and certainly some of the infrastructure problems that they've got in the US now, with bridges and roads falling apart all over the place. But one of the bigger concerns that I've got is that we have people over there, and there's people here as well, who they don't want universal healthcare, Pete. It's the only first world country in the world that doesn't have universal healthcare. And when it's brought up as an option, the people themselves will argue against it, because they're brought up with this sense of independence, which means they don't want their tax going to fix Joe Blow's bloody problems that are of his own doing. There's no concept of the idea that sharing these costs helps actually overall bring the average cost down for everyone. And it also reduces crime. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about things like universal healthcare, is when a family gets desperate, when a dad gets desperate, when a mum gets desperate, they will steal. I would steal. If I knew that the only way that I could get the money to help my kids survive, I would steal.
Yeah.
Now, if we can eliminate that as one of the causes of crime, it goes a long way to helping make society better. But there's so much more that they could do with the economy of the size that they've got. Instead, and this is the bit that makes me laugh most of all, the one country in the world that is most scared of socialism and communism has the largest socialist employment scheme in the world, the US military. If you can't get a job when you graduate high school, you go and you join the military, and they will pay you no matter what.
Yep.
If that's not a socialist scheme, what is? But they'll insult socialism because they don't understand it. It's like that saying, everything I don't like is woke.
I think the ultimate irony is that Trump wants to buy Greenland, who actually has government-funded healthcare. How bizarre! Yeah, how does that work? I mean, apart from the bizarre reasons why he would want to buy that, but he also wants to give back the Panama Canal. I haven't looked into that a lot. It does seem crazy that they used to own it and they sold it to China, and I don't know whether that's true or what. But he wants to be able to control the Panama Canal. He thinks that's the be all and end all.
Well, I mean, Greenland. He's clearly after the oil reserves and the mineral deposits that are there. There are massive amounts of mineral deposits and massive amounts of oil. So he's clearly after that. But what to even think that he's deluded himself into believing that he can have access to some place in in Europe that has got nothing to do with America at this point. I just, but I'm. What's worrying this time round is that I think the last time I felt like the only people that could put a check on him were the religious leaders. The lady who gave the sermon yesterday at the inauguration,
that was good.
she just, but he's now demanded an apology.
Of course he has.
Because she asked him to be compassionate.
Yeah, and now there are about 2 or 3 other Republicans saying that she should be on the list of deportees. She's born in New Jersey. Why? Where were they going to deport her to?
I mean, look, the sooner people realize that you can't push Trump around because he's such a child, you just can't. I'm just wondering whether or not, because I mean, you know how much of a fan he is of Putin. I'm just wondering whether Putin barging his way around the world, doing what he does, is that's what inspiring Trump to be able to say, I want to be like that. I mean, that's the heart of a dictator, isn't it? Of deciding, you've got that and I want to take it and I will. You can't stop me. So I wonder whether he was so inspired by when Putin decided to invade Ukraine, whether or not that inspired Trump to think, well, then why can't I take Greenland? It's got oil.
You'd think so. There's so many similarities. Like Putin has obviously a pseudo democracy. You can vote for anybody as long as it's him, and if anybody's a threat, he'll reduce. Surrounded themselves with rich oligarchs, which is there. He has the leader of the Orthodox Church in Russia, basically, an antichrist leader dressed up in the garb of Christianity. The same thing, but in America they've got their evangelical and Pentecostal charismatic people doing the same thing. You can see it's the same playbook playing out again. And anybody sucked into that, especially Christians, just take a step back and look at it. It's so obvious, written out there in black and white. You don't have to look too far to see what's going on there. I think he's definitely, whether it's just he's actually observed what Putin's doing and deliberately copying it. I think there's an element of that. I think it's more likely that kind of in powerful nations with great wealth and large militaries, that's if the people do not stand up against it, that's something that bubbles to the surface with great wealth and power and military might.
Maybe he wants to turn America into a Russia with less snow. I mean, maybe that's his simple plan. I mean, he loves Putin. He wants to be a dictator. He obviously admires the way that he runs the country with just ultimate power for the leader, like China and like South Korea. Maybe that's what he wants, just to turn America into. One thing's for sure, there have been great countries and massive leaders and countries fall from grace over the time. I think it will happen to America. It's going to take a lot longer because they are so big. It will take a lot longer for them to crumble, like the Roman Empire and those who couldn't fall did and have. And I think that's going to. You can't do what he's going to do to the United States of America if he's successful at doing what he wants to do. I can't see any other way apart from them falling to their knees, and a few rich will maintain their lifestyles, and everyone else is just going to suffer horribly, which is what they can't. I'd imagine living in America at the moment. You'd be saying that back in the day about China and Russia and Yugoslavia, about you'd say that, but now you can say it about America. How the hell did that happen?
I've got to go, but can I leave you with one thought for you all to consider? I haven't looked at the U.S. Constitution, but we know that the maximum number of terms that people can do, presidents can do, is 2 consecutively. Do we now start counting Trump as this one as his first of 2? In other words, do we have him for 8 years from now, or do we have to count the one he did a couple of terms back?
Is it consecutive, or is it can you come back? Because you could, if that's the case, then you could be in power 1 year, 1 term, 4 years, then not, then back, then not, then back. Does it have to be consecutive terms? I don't know how it works either. What a horrible thought.
Yeah, leave you all with that, and I shall look forward to watching this later.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Suresh. Good luck with your ticker tuning up tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. I forgot to tell you, get a turbocharger on your pacemaker, mate. That's. Hey, Fenton is back.
Hey.
I bet my farm Trump will repeal the. Oh yes, of course he could. The term limit.
Can you? Isn't that constitutional?
The Fifth Amendment or the Eighth Amendment or 10th can all be changed. In the words of Jim Jeffries, Australian comedian, it's called an amendment.
Although those amendments were actually pretty much done at the time of the Constitution, weren't they? So there's not been a lot of amendments that
prohibition was changed Jefferson got slavery out of it. So yeah, it can be changed, but of course Trump will do that. He'll change everything, saying I can be in power for as long as I want. Who's going to stop him? How can they? Fenton, you probably know more about it, obviously being American politics. Do you know whether Trump can actually do that? Is that doable, or is it just written that you cannot change? It has to be set a certain way. Can he repeal it? That would be, yeah. Well, one thing's good about this, there aren't too many good things, and that is it keeps us talking about very interesting subjects, because this is all new. We're going to have to work this out a lot as we go along. I'm just interested in see how it's going to play out with our next election, which is not that far away. Federal. If Dutton is prepared to prostitute himself and copy the dirty tactics that got Trump to where he was, it wasn't about winning votes for Trump. It was about the great manipulation of getting the kind of people who thought that he was actually there to help them and be his mate. And
that's the problem. There's no adults. There's no adults left in the room, Pete.
No. And Kamala Harris, I mean, as you said earlier, Jace, she wanted to play on a level playing field and offer something good, bit of quality. Didn't have the slightest bit of impact on anyone. They just thought, no, we want a crook. We'd rather have a crook. Fenton, we are going to see how flexible it is. Why don't I keep forgetting to do this and load up something, see the damn thing. Are we going to see how flexible it is? He's going to push as far as he can. Only probably 100 lawyers know if it's really possible. What I've learned about one thing about Trump, Fenton, is that anyone that ever underestimates him is a fool, because he is going to end up being, or already is on paper, the most powerful man in the world. But at the moment, he's the most powerful man simply because he's the president. There's a few things. He will end up being the most powerful man in the world up against Putin and whoever else is out there. I think he just wants to control the world. As it's like it's freaking Hitler all over again. Seriously.
It's so hard to not make the Hitler comparisons, but when it's this similar, really visit some early the stories of the early rise of Hitler and the way that the establishment saw him, treated him, wanted to use him for his own good, for their own good. lost control of him, and how quickly it all turned. It was all just sort of waiting, and then it suddenly came in. And Hitler wasn't a enormously intelligent man. He wasn't wealthy or anything like that. So it's interesting. Yeah, he knew how to do the halls of power and how to gain power and populist power.
How else could you convince? How else could you possibly convince people to build gas chambers under the guise of it being a different reason for building, and then just gassing people? And I'm sure the people who are, oh, absolutely. But how many innocent soldiers were tricked into doing that and committing?
And they were killed if they didn't comply. Correct. I mean, that's the thing. It's the frog in the pot strategy, know. And by the time you start pushing back, your academics have gone. Anybody that is on the other side of politics is long gone. They've been killed, imprisoned, and everybody else just becomes compliant because they're scared.
Well, you know what they did? They deported the ones that would dare stand up against it, which is exactly what those people did to a minister who dared stand up against the president, and not stand up against him in any sort of political way. It was, hey, please treat the poor. Please reach out and do this. Please do something good for the marginalized of society. And it's exactly what the fascist regimes did, is exactly what the communist regimes did. I'm just hoping that people realize that if you don't want to be communist, the other choice is not fascism. There's other choices besides being a communist or a fascist.
Yeah. And
use your imagination a bit.
The reason why he's one of the worst presidents, because he was born into wealth. He never experienced poverty, maybe a short period of time before his father bailed him out, but he's only ever known wealth and power. And when you've got that much wealth and that much power, that is the worst possible credentials you can have for being a president. It's not helpful. It's not good. Fenton, no adults left in the room is perfect. Absolutely. He's gotten rid of all of the adults, and he'll just have manipulative people who he needs to push around. Project 2025 seems pretty accurate to what he has done already, so I'm going to go off of that for predictions. Where are you, Fenton? Are you in the back of your car freezing your balls off at the moment? Or I hope you're somewhere far more comfortable. And thanks again, mate. I did thank, but I didn't know whether you were listening, for your contributions to last week. For those people who, as I mentioned before, want to go and have a look at our talk about flat earthers, it was fascinating. Fenton braved the cold at 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting in the back of his car with fog coming out of his mouth to talk to us. And we ended up, when the podcast actually finished, him and I, gosh, must have talked for about another hour about all sorts of interesting stuff. And for the record, red wine had nothing to do with the zero influence whatsoever. No, we had a really good talk. It was fabulous. When we could think of a way of plugging you in and utilizing your experience in America, you could become our American correspondent.
I reckon. Absolutely. Bring him in.
On a weekly basis, even for a half hour or an hour, maybe half hour of what you've experienced with what's going on, because my goodness gracious me, there's going to be so much to talk about. Have someone there available and knowledgeable and smart like yourself, mate, that would be fabulous. So if you're available, let us know. We'll try and
brilliant.
Try and set something up. But yeah.
Let me tell you my little mini rant about my problem with this whole Trump phenomena is not so much, well, it is what can be done in his hands, but what rises up from the shadows of our good society. I'll tell you a story, and it's a true story. It's about somebody I know in the city. So, fringes of Christianity, nice guy. in fact, one of his friends recently commented on a thing there, how supportive and loving he was when that person was sort of coming out as queer, and just being a real supportive mate and helping them through. The next thing, has an amazing encounter with God, starts walking down the Christian road. Obviously, when you've got a good heart and now you're starting to get into church stuff, he wants to sort of do something there. So he's moving toward leadership and in the church. Unfortunately, the climate that it's in, it takes this man who has obviously got a heart for people, has an encounter with the divine, and then the church takes him, and the next thing he's posting is, how good is it, this executive order from Trump about gender, as if it's like, it's great. And it's like, how do you get from being a person who's so full of love, helping people struggle with stuff, to supporting Trump? One, I mean, it's different when you're in Australia. When you're in America, it's so much more noisy, and there's a lot of deception. You get sucked into things, and that you can get driven by fear, and all that sort of stuff can be a mixture. When you're in Australia, we can see it with far clearer eyes. So what is absolutely broken in the system that takes a kind-hearted, loving ally, and within a very short period of time is posting on the internet supporting Trump and literally attacking the people he once used to love and help out? What's gone wrong? And I can tell you, it's just heartbreaking to see. And that's what I'm talking about. When Trump comes up, even people, obviously there's a dynamic there that there's a sense that he feels like to belong in that position of leadership in this sort of charismatic evangelical world, you've got to be some kind of hard-nosed sort of gender ideologue, and support an awful dictator in rising. How does that happen? I don't know, but I can tell you there is something broken, and Trump rising up is bringing this up. And it's heartbreaking.
I have a theory that just sprung to mind listening to what you were saying. Firstly, I don't think Trump could be successful in any other country in the world at doing what he's done. Yes, there has been leaders who have risen up, Putin, and we've talked about all that, but completely different reasons and completely different ways of achieving what he's achieved. And I think Trump somehow, either consciously or subconsciously, locked into the fact that America is probably the most, what's the word? I want to use the word Christian, but it's we know that that's not Christian per se, but it sort of has that feel about the entire country. They are obsessed. The vast majority, 64% of Americans don't even believe the earth is round. The percentage of Americans who still believe that Jesus is coming back, all of that kind of stuff is unsellable to the most of the world. But Americans, and I think Trump has somehow sold a package to the American people which allows them to have that inner Old Testament hate for gay people and for the LGBTQ. There's something that runs through the veins of so many Americans. How else could he possibly turn them into what has actually become? He can forget about abortions not happening, forget about gay people. Let guys drive around in their utes with the stickers on saying "my woman, my rights" or some stupid freaking thing that they do. He has managed to do that by manipulating, I think, the fact that there is this inner hate, and you see it come out. You only got to go to their rallies and listen to people interviewing them. All of the people, Trump fans, they are as thick as pig shit, and they are so anti everything that we've become used to and accepting, like gay people. From whatever place you come from, they're accepted and loved as they are in Australia by and large. Of course, there are people who don't. But I think that that's what he's managed to actually perfect. That's, what do you think? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I think so. I think there's, a lot of what I see is from the inside, because and you too, Pete. We grew up. I grew up there. You spent a long time on the inside, so you know what it is. What it feels like to think a certain way. When there's not this going on, it's good. But I think the Trump era has exposed some of the things that were very wrong from the foundation. This is not something that's gone wrong. This is something that was sitting there that's always been wrong. The sort of patriarchal undercurrent in it. The hatred is the right term of gays and lesbians and the whole spectrum there, because it's not like when you propose certain things in those circles that people are like, well, we'll consider it, but because we've got to remain pure to this, you don't have a nice conversation. There's a lot of instant attacking and hatred that comes out. This is not trying to sort of zealousness for God. It's in hatred for people, and that doesn't just happen overnight. It was always there. We just didn't know it was there because when you're in the church and you're not gay, you don't have gay friends because they don't come to your church. You don't go to a church where you're not allowed to be who you are. But the global sort of internet now means that we are exposed to that. And when you for instance, I am a perfectly patient man as long as I don't have to talk to people. I'm infinitely patient, but the minute I talk to a person, the same thing. There wasn't a problem because there was none of that interface. And as soon as the interface, the underlying brokenness that was in that system is still there. It has come to the fore. And maybe I despair. I said I despaired and upset that maybe Trump was bringing this out. I think the Trump movement, the era, this, I'm using that as shorthand. I'm not blaming Trump as such. Maybe it's just exposing something that was always there. And maybe now that you can see the symptoms, either this thing will die or there will be a way through where we can cut out the cancer and be whole again. I don't know. I hold out hope, but maybe it's
Jace,
touch and go, I can tell you that.
Do you think at the end of the Trump era, and God willing there is one, do you reckon we can ever go back, or is he going to set the bar as low as it can go and that's going to stay low? Like the Kennedys aren't going to return. Can't hear you, Jace. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I had to mute myself because it's emptying down with rain here and it got very noisy.
Oh, really? Wow.
I don't think that America is going to survive this. I genuinely don't. I suspect that the individual states will survive. But if you think about California, its economy is bigger than most countries around the world anyway. So I think we're going to see a break in the United States, and you're going to end up with the red states and the blue states forming their own United States. That will involve civil war. That will involve a lot of death, horror. It's just the way it's going to go. That's what I'm foreseeing. When Obama was voted in, I was filled with joy, with pride, with
hope.
The thought that, wow, we finally hit that point in human evolution where we can accept the idea of an intelligent black man being the leader of the free world. And I was stoked. And I was overjoyed when, in this most recent election, and I thought we might end up with a female black president. I was like, that's amazing. It shows how far we've come. And in fact, we've reverted. This is not one step forward, two steps back. This is one step forward, and we've run as fast as we can at the wall that was 100 meters behind us. It is catastrophically bad, and I am horrified, and I'm gutted, and it's not even my country.
No,
because
you don't have to go back very far, do you, to Obama? That was just like seems like a couple of years ago, and that was groundbreaking. And I hear what you're saying, and I agree. And he even had a name. He even had a name that wasn't from the Western world, or some Middle Eastern, Obama. And yet they grew up and matured and became so amazing so quickly. And as you say, and then it just, in an instant.
But what's the common thread in all of this? What is the common thread? Is it a lack of education? Is it ignorance? Is it hatred? Is it just a sense of other and wanting to externally attribute blame? Because I see a lot of the worst part of humanity. So all of these individual things like anti-vaxxers, like people who don't want universal health care, like people who are bigots or racists, or this all it all seems to be the same cohort of people. And I hesitate to say that it's the right of politics, because then I'm labeling 50% of the population that way. But unfortunately, I think there are some people who might even be single issue voters who are prepared to forego the rights of others on the basis of the one thing that they want. Now, I have a little hook line that I use on my Facebook profile, which is not me, we. And that's an acknowledgement that I think that there's more to life than just doing things that are good for me. Because I genuinely believe when you do the right thing by the greater population, that comes back to serve you anyway. Yeah. So I'm not of that religious mindset of, I live to serve and all that kind of thing. But I very much believe in this idea that you act for the greater good.
Yeah, I agree entirely and understand exactly what you're saying. And I think that there's lots of things you can think of that have caused this. I think opportunity is one of the greatest, I guess. We don't have to go back very far. America's not very old. I think we've seen it go through incredible changes. When you compare, places like Japan and China and Greece and all through Europe, these countries are thousands and thousands of years old. America's not that old. It wasn't that long ago. Not that long ago, there was a civil war. Not that long ago that there was slavery. And they had an opportunity to come out of all of that and become a great nation, and they were starting to do that. How Trump managed to come in and destroy all of that hope and all of that opportunity for people is staggering. He's either incredibly evil or incredibly clever. He's not smart, but he knows how to manipulate people. And if that can get you to become the president of the United States, shame on the country through it.
Did he manipulate anyone? Or are we simply, as Rich said, we're simply empowering people who have felt this way all along? And I saw a word the other day, I think it was word of the year last year, the entitlement of the population. Because, what we couldn't previously say is now considered censorship. And I've said to people on a regular basis, they go, political correctness has gone too far. I can't say what I want to say. And I do the Socratic thing, and I sit with them and say, all right, let's be honest. Let's sit down and have an open and frank conversation. You tell me what it is that you want to say. What is it that you're not allowed to say? Bring it. I won't abuse you. I won't argue with you. I simply want to hear what it is you think you can't say. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can say whatever you want. You don't have the right to say whatever you want under the Australian law, but let's assume that you did. Say what you want to say, but understand that in saying what you want to say, you have to take responsibility to how other people might feel about that. And that's all I'm asking people is say what you want, but understand the implications of your speech.
Yeah. All right, let's jump on and see what Fenton sent through some messages. The thing that is weirding me out is the suspicion that Trump has already built a team that is making him uncomfortable with their insanity.
Yeah, if you're freaking Trump out, imagine what you are.
Right, and then followed up with, like with TikTok, when it impacts the young gamers, big change will push the Trump regime back. I'm confident they can't handle the waves of angry computer geniuses. Wow, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? Gamers unite. See what you can come up with. You might be on to something there, Fed. It'd be interesting to watch that.
Isn't that what's happening in Ukraine?
I'm going to bring out a scripture that will confirm what Fenton's just said. The Sermon on the Mount, the geek shall inherit the earth.
But honestly, when you think about it, guys,
maybe so.
Think about Ukraine. Who's fighting? Who is doing the most effective fighting in Ukraine at the moment? It's the drone pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking little drones, right? Not the big military drones. These are the little drones. They're $1,000 and they're carrying a single munition. And they're killing dozens and dozens of Russian soldiers and disabling multi-million-dollar tanks with a $1,000 drone. And the guys flying them, they're young and they're playing with toys. That's all they're doing.
Yes.
It's a revolution in warfare.
Let's exploit the teenagers.
Yeah.
So interestingly, when earlier on when we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff, it got me thinking, is there any danger, do you think, that people like us will be silenced and censored and taken off? If you look at someone like Trump, who will ultimately have power in all sorts of areas that he feels like going into, and as I mentioned before, no political opposition. There's no one to say, you're not doing that, mate. He's going, here I am doing it, and I'm doing it now. Could you imagine a time not that far down the track where suddenly people like us all around the world are banned from having an opinion? They heard that we were bagging out Trump. Well,
but hang on, they believe in free speech.
Yeah. Do they?
Yeah.
Or is that just a...
Well, no.
There's already a US citizen.
Have you seen the whole kick-up that's happening with Elon Musk was kind of determined to be cheating in the games that he claims to be the best in the world at? And so on X, which is the old Twitter, people were giving evidence of how he's clearly not a good gamer, blah, blah, blah. And did he chuck a tanty? So instead of, the free speech element of it, he's kind of censored this guy, muted him, taken his blue tick off the guy, all because, well, he owns it. He can do that. So isn't it interesting that free speech only counts where it's the narrative that you want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
That's right, yes. Yeah. Free speech works a lot better when you're wealthy. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, doesn't it ever?
And if you're in poverty, you have no rights, you have no power, you have nothing. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see whether one day that we could be taken off, not in my lifetime, but, is it going to be a world where we can no longer say what we want because AI will be listening? I've also noticed whenever Lou's cooking or something, she'll say, when she'll want the timer set, she'll say, Siri, set timer for 15 minutes. Setting timer for 15 minutes. Thank you, Siri. Oh, you're most welcome. Keep saying it. Keep being nice. Keep being nice, because she's going to come knocking at your door one day.
That's right.
Maybe. Fenton, the video game cheating thing is great. The richest man being owned all over the internet, and he can't help but make it worse. I'm excited about the gamers, but let's please not get to the point where we actually exploit innocent people to be able to control deadly weapons that can kill people. That is mental. You should, if you're going to use that, is that what they're really doing in Ukraine? Are the kids doing stuff like that or not?
Well, I wouldn't call them kids. They're 18 to 30-year-olds, but they're people that have grown up using not just video games but drones.
Yeah, but they employed by the government to be soldiers or not?
Well, I would much rather, if I had, not that I ever would, but if I had to send my son into war, I'd rather him be a drone pilot than a rifleman out there in the trenches.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And if we're talking exploitation, but we've got conscription, I know which one I'm going to pick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's great to see the little man fighting back, and I don't think Putin would be very excited about digging in the trenches for a hell of a long war, which is this going to become. It was like he was going to go in there, clear them out, and sort it out, and let's go. But it's just going to go on and on and on. It's just amazing. A country with the mass of Russia against little Ukraine, and
well, can I tell you one other thing, Pete? So now that the US has pulled out of NATO, Europe's on their own. So what happens now with Russia's ambitions, not just Ukraine, but Poland? What about Finland? What about the Baltic states that kind of managed to pull away from the USSR with Putin's ambitions to pull them all back in again? What defense is there? Who's going to get in the way? I mean, Europe is going to have to band together. And I'm just talking about Germany and France and Spain, God forbid, Italy, all the smaller countries as well, and the UK. If you don't have the US there, and even from our point of view, with the treaties that we...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What now? New Zealand and Australia capable of defending themselves against an aggressor like China? What about Taiwan? They've kind of been relying on the US to be there to help them.
Yeah.
What's to stop China now just walking straight into Taiwan?
Well, nothing, because it used to be Australia had a relationship with America going back as far as you can go. I mean, there was no other reason other than we'll always be there for you. We went into Vietnam. We went into wars with America. Trump doesn't give a stuff about any of that. There's no loyalty to us whatsoever, unless somehow tariffs are making it worthwhile. And so that's a real scary thing. Also, you scared the crap out of me because we're going to Italy next year for my daughter's wedding. Is there going to be in Italy next year? I mean, wow.
Well, look at the Roman Empire. Do you remember how big the Roman Empire was?
Yep.
I mean, it stretched from virtually Scotland right the way through the top of the Mediterranean, around through the Middle East, and right the way along the north of Africa. Now, that was a massive empire that lasted 1,000 years plus. It didn't die instantly. It died from 1,000 cuts over an extended period of time. But as it went out, it took down a lot of other countries, for want of its... I mean, the fact that they marched into somewhere like England and they had forts there and they took over, they were basically the government. In the dying days of the empire, it wasn't just about retreating. I mean, it was just like it was with the Nazis, where they became violent, they became scared, and so they took it out on the populations. That's one of the things I'm most worried about in this whole scenario. There are so many theaters of the world now that are negatively or adversely affected by this, and the problem is people are going to get hurt. People are going to die. People are going to go hungry. People are going to be discriminated against. People who have been empowered by the enshittement of the world. The dynamic here, the binary, if you want, all nuance is lost. We are becoming a binary population, and you're either on this side or this side, and that is a recipe for unmitigated conflict.
Yep. And we're talking about, from our perspective and from America's perspective, how is this going to impact the rest of the world? Trump's feelers will go everywhere. I mean, he's already taking on China. He's talking tough against them. He's talking about Greenland. It's really scary about...
But he doesn't need to, Peter.
Hey?
It doesn't even need to be him now. What he's done is he's empowered the fascist right to step up.
Right. Yep.
And so Farage and, what we've seen happening in France, what we're seeing happening in Germany.
Canada.
These people are braver now.
Yeah.
They're happy to come out and vote that way and wave their flags. I mean, I saw some video footage 2 weeks ago now of some people walking through the heart of Cleveland in black with Nazi flags. We're no longer talking about, maybe they're Nazis. There were Nazi flags. And because of the free speech rights in America, they set the police came along, sat them down on a wall. They could not do a thing because they're exercising their free speech rights. Now, in Germany, it's illegal to fly the Nazi flag. It's not illegal in the United States.
It's illegal in Australia too.
But what a rally to arms it is to the people who, let's just call them the dickheads. What a rally to arm to the dickheads to say, feel free to say and do whatever you want. Don't care about anybody else's thoughts or feelings, because that's woke. Just be who you want to be. You go, do you.
So let's look. Let's zoom in on the people who are running around painting swastikas and waving banners and stuff. What is their connection? What is it they want to express, which lines up somehow with what they believe in or what they feel? The Holocaust never happened. Are they anti-Jews? Is it a religious thing? What is their connection with bringing back the whole Nazi thing? Well,
I think Rich will probably have a lot to say about this, but just from my perspective, I think the whole Nazi thing is actually a bit of a red herring. I think that's actually more a flag they can hold up to talk about their values. They don't necessarily believe in the entire mantra of the National Socialists of Germany back in the 40s. I think it's more a case of being able to demonstrate and say, we're here and this is kind of the sorts of things that we believe in. What I'm really concerned about is young people. And I was talking about how, you kind of take groups of people and they all seem to be a part of the same cohort. One of the things that I did touch on this with Fenton as well, how we've got a whole new cohort of young men coming through who they're now starting to lean to the right. But you've still got a whole cohort of young women coming through who are still progressive and they're leaning to the left. Now, all these boys are all big around Andrew Tate and, guys like that who are all about be a man, stand up, you're strong, you don't be a victim. And that's about their rights, but they don't have any respect at all for the women. And I don't even know if that's a religious thing, but they just have no respect because from their perspective, it empowers them to say that they have rights over somebody else. They can take what they want. So it's power and social capital.
Yep, that is totally Bible-based, I think. The Bible has
take a look at the
when it comes to male dominance.
Take a look at the big world religions, like the Christian ones, Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and on the magisterial Protestants. Who are the ones who the only sex allowed to be in charge? Of course, it's systemic. It's something that is there and has to be reckoned with. Obviously, there is blame there. If you build your entire religion that says the only ones who can make decisions and be in charge are men, you're reaping what you sow for 2,000 years.
Which is why I said why America is the way it is. It's a kind of weird, like if you go to a Greek Orthodox church in Greece, you're not going to see or hear any of the stuff that you hear coming out of America. It's managed to maintain that its old-fashioned values, and I'm not saying they're right or they're wrong. I'm just saying that's what they've managed. America has kind of liberalized in some bizarre turbocharged move toward going backwards into, and Fenton says it here, most of I think that's supposed to say neo-Nazis want America to be in the white 1950s again by any means. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, they're not far out of that. I mean, you talk about the Roman Empire and the spread that it had across the world for 1,000 years plus. America's nothing compared to that as far as the age. And within that period, it's grown to be, the biggest economy and the biggest. They spend more money on the military than most of the countries of the world put together. God knows why. I don't know what they're afraid of, what they feel they need to. Did they always plan to be dominating all countries of the world and being involved and sticking their noses into wars that had nothing to do with them or whatever? I don't know. But that's what we have with America. In a very short period of time, they have gone through slavery. Some people came out of it. A lot of people haven't and never will. And so you're trying to marry up this whole weird thing where there's so many different states. It's not just one country. It's a mess that's always going to happen without the right kind of people in power. And suddenly you put in a lunatic like Trump, and whatever, Trevor, whatever rocks your world is what will happen. It's just it's a melting pot of mess. It really is.
Yeah.
Got no hope.
You know the rise of the sort of far right fascism, neo-Nazi, as you get further and further right, you get that, but it's along a spectrum. I think, from what I understand about reading a bit about it and some of the research that's around it, is that there are a few things going on. One of them is disadvantaged communities. You don't tend to have university professors generally earning $150,000 to $250,000 a year becoming neo-Nazis. No, they don't. It's the ones who feel unempowered, where there's not economic benefits on the horizons. Society is really breaking down. You think, no matter how hard you try, you feel like you're running on place.
Yep.
You're looking around, and the human evolutionary drive, we need a solution, and something that the only thing that feels good is to have a nice closed answer without any ambiguity. And the quickest way to get there is to say, the reason why I'm struggling is because of that man over there and that woman over there, that immigrant, that person of color, that person of a different race. You just got to have somebody to blame, and suddenly it's like, it makes sense.
But how can the billionaires make us believe that it's the people who are poorer than us that are the cause of the problem?
Yeah, that's right.
Jace, you said it. Elon Musk could single-handedly solve some intractable problems in his own country. Single-handedly. One man could make a decision tomorrow and change everything.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have one little rant here. A friend of mine, he says, he's gone on Facebook having a bit of constant rants about tax billionaires out of existence.
Yep.
I agree 100%.
Eat the rich.
Eat the rich. Yeah, I'm pretty much there. Except I'm also one of the rich. So, a lot of what I say, you know what I mean? But a billionaire. And he was sharing one thing, basically, if we reduced all of the multi-billionaires to just $1 billion, like $1 billion, you can't spend it quick enough.
Yep.
So if we brought everybody down to just $1 billion, we'd have $10 trillion.
Wow.
We could solve the climate crisis within a few decades, or we could tackle education. I personally think you tackle education and poverty. You could transform the world in a matter.
So there we go.
But by the time I die, this world could be transformed.
Totally.
So, Rich, I'm going to take your plan.
Holding on to his wealth is evil.
Let's take your plan. So now anything over $1 billion, because we regulate hairdressers, we regulate builders, we regulate the food industry. We don't regulate billionaires. Mm-hmm. So if we said, right, once you get over let's call it $10 billion in assets. Once you get over $10 billion, the rest of it is 100% taxed. We give you a certificate and we name a dog park after you, and then it's all good. We can all be happy. We can all move forward. What are you going to do with more than $10 billion?
But that doesn't work, because then you give power back to the people, and the whole world is based upon taking the power off people.
I wonder, guys, Elon Musk cannot be president of the US because he was born in South Africa.
Well, he's apparently a legal immigrant too.
I reckon all of this is just his way of having power that he couldn't have because of the system. You've got to hang on to your billions if you want to rule the world. If you want to be a human being, you cannot hold on to your billions without becoming something else.
And the one that flies under the radar all the time is Bezos. We know Zuckerberg's story intimately. There's been a film made when he, we know what he's up to. He's a creep. Where's the dog coming from?
Not me.
Oh, is that yours, Rich? Never heard it before. Musk, he wants to be seen. Bezos obviously is very good at hiding behind, curtains or whatever he likes to hide behind. So what's his story? What surely isn't there someone, I mean, it staggers me the amount of wealth. I think Australia and around Mandurah area has more millionaires per head of capita than just about anywhere in the world.
And more Harley Davidsons. How's that? Per capita
right?
than anywhere else in the world.
It is insane. And the people, if I won, we talk about this story all the time. If I won $50 million, the very first thing I'd be talking about is, my God, what could I do to change the world? I don't want to go. I'd buy a Harley too, and whatever. But that kind of money, the kind of people who want to do that are never the ones that actually have it or win it. There's a difference between winning money and how that affects you, as opposed to earning money and working for money, as little as you may have done if you're lucky. But to have wealth that you've worked for is very difficult for some people to give away. When you win money, it's really easy to give it away because you didn't have to do anything other than just be lucky. Do you know? But it staggers me to think in this world where wealth is still only made up of assets and bits of paper, how we can't change things permanently. God love Bob Geldof and the people that tried. It had very little impact, if anything, as for making permanent change. Christians
because
all around the world.
People defending the billionaires, Pete. Like even here in Australia, I've been a party to discussions on social media where we're talking about why there shouldn't be multi-billionaires. And I don't know if it's because these people think that they're going to become one themselves or something, but they're all out there defending that kind of obscene wealth. And I just don't get it. It's like, but you can't do that. That's theft. They've got every right to what they've earned. But you can't reach that level of wealth without exploiting the people around you.
Correct.
So if I earn what I earn, I get taxed, I don't know, more than 20%, 30, 40%. Elon Musk is at 433 billion. Are you telling me that he earned $1 trillion? No, he did not. How did he pay $600 billion in tax to better the society?
Nope.
You bet not. There are companies earning hundreds of millions and billions of dollars paying no tax. This is not about.
You're just jealous, Rich. You're just jealous.
This is not about stealing. This is about what kind of world do we want to live in? We already know that to be a billionaire, you have to have something wrong with you. Because you have to. If you sit with that much money and you could look out your window and go, I can make every single person's life on this planet significantly better. No, actually, I'm not. I'm going to go muck around with US politics instead. There's something wrong with you.
If Elon Musk collected cats like he collects money, we'd have him in a mental institution.
It's true. Look, it is.
Anyway, we have some good rants here, but obviously you can't just go in and take $400 billion off Musk and not like negatively impact the ecosystem. But you can have a 50-year plan. You can say, okay, guys, 50 years from now, we're going to have a year of Jubilee where we're going to, this is a biblical thing, cancel everybody's debts, make this world a better place. We can move towards that. 50 years, we can do it without breaking the system.
The only people who want to make the world a better place are the people who don't have money. And that is significant. And the people who can make the world a better place don't want to make a better place are the people who are filthy rich, who own more money than the rest of us combined together. And why?
Well,
because there's no rule or law or global thing that says you cannot earn as much money as you want. You can do whatever you want. You are free to do whatever. You are free to exploit people. You are free to be a Nike and exploit people to the nth degree and make yourself filthy rich at the expense of their livelihood. You are free to be a manufacturer of mobile phones and exploit people in India working. You know, it's just, this is the world in which we live, which is why I get so angry when Christian people say, if we only all just believed in God together, this would make things. That's not going to fix anything. It never has. It never will. I don't know what the solution is. I honestly have no idea.
I'll give you some sense of the venom. Some sense of the venom that the people on the right have. So yeah. I'm not saying I'm particularly well off, but I'm doing okay. And so very often I will help people out and I'll do certain things that are charitable and just off my own bat. I'm not looking for any kind of glory, but I just do it. So does my wife. It's just something that we've always done. The amount of times that we've been accused of virtue signaling or glory hunting, and it's not like we've gone to the paper to say, hey, look what we just did, or announce it on YouTube or put something on Facebook about it. We don't do any of that. It's more a case of the warm, and look, maybe this makes it a little bit selfish, but the warm fuzzies that you get from helping someone else out, even beyond funds, even beyond money, the attention that you can give to someone, the coaching that you can give to someone who's not necessarily doing very well, the friendship or companionship that you can give to people, being generous with your time, not just with your money, but money as well. And yet the right look at that as some sort of weakness or flaw in your character.
Yeah.
It just goes to show the depth that this cancer goes. And that's the only way you can describe it, because there's a streak of evil there that they don't appreciate, that some of us are genuinely trying to make things better for everyone.
I think it brings us back to the fact that we're an evolving species, and that's not an excuse, but that is an opportunity to understand the world is a really weird place. You're born into it and you can just do whatever or do nothing or you know, there's no, you're not, and I'm not suggesting there's an alternative where people are controlled into being what you should believe, but this is the world in which we have got, where we are just evolving, and it's left up to us to fix every single solitary thing. And if people don't want it to be fixed, then you're up against it. If you're wealthy, good on you. You can be a tight ass and not worry about it, or you can just struggle through your entire life. And that is the human experience in a nutshell. That is what we are all faced with. And it's up to you if you want to change or to invest or to work hard or whatever to try and make your life better in the short 70, 80, 90, 100 years that you have ahead of you. It's dark and it's depressing.
You heard people, like, they talk quite a few times about rescinding student debt. So like here in Australia, so many kids now have had HECS debts. And so they're coming out of university with, they're already behind the 8 ball. It's going to be 10, 15 years before they can get the money together to even put a deposit down on the house. So, you're making life difficult. So when the idea was mooted about just expunging all student debt, the amount of people that came out and said, well, I have to pay mine off. So what? It's like, I don't understand why it's not a zero-sum game like that.
No.
Like, just why can't you love the idea that all of these kids now suddenly have no debt? That's extraordinary. That's brilliant. It's nothing to do with you. Shut the hell up.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a whole group of people in our society that don't give a stuff about that, who never have to worry about money, and they are public servants that we pay and employ to do a job, and you never see any of them ever going without, ever. they're all wealthy. They all get paid more than the people that they're representing. And to me, that is just an absolute disgrace.
You must be talking top-tier career bureaucrats, because the vast majority of public servants I know ain't in that category.
Oh, no, sorry, political. I mean political people, not public servants.
Okay.
No, I'm talking politicians specifically. There's a few messages coming. Let's check it out from Fenton. I think the future solution will involve automation transforming our economy. Whoever is organising that transition will shape the world more. Well, that's Bezos and Trump and.
I suspect the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's hope a benevolent AI takes over.
Oh, shush. Everyone. Who's this? How do you pronounce someone? Isaacs? No. How would you pronounce Noach? Noach? I don't know.
Noach?
Isaacs. Everyone on that level use the system to their advantage. Trump mentions it in debate with Hillary Clinton.
You know, I was thinking about that comment, and this is the one thing that it probably is the thing that's undermining the scare quotes democracy in America, is that to even run for president, you have to have a massive amount of wealth behind you, which puts you in that category of playing with the billionaires. So you kind of your ticket to entrance is to sell your soul, so to speak. So it's like, how do you even start the race in politics without a great deal of compromise?
You've lost before you even started, because it's not based upon the quality of your leadership and your desire for improvement and for good policies.
Even here in Australia,
help working people. It's about who's got the most money. That is a direct contradiction of caring for people who don't have money, because you're using your money to get into power, whether you're going to fix the problem or not. It's ridiculous.
There's no perfect system, but that seems like when it's like the average person and the ability to run for president is insurmountable. There's no way to get there.
I mean, part of the issue there is the two-party system, obviously. That's part of the issue. However, if we were to switch to something like a direct democracy, using, say, the internet with encryption and bit chain and all that kind of thing to make sure that the vote is counted and the vote is accurate, my fear then is that that could end up worse, because we end up with populism. Yeah. And I don't know that that's necessarily a better alternative than a representative democracy.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. Another one from Noak, please, or whatever your name is. I hate mispronouncing words. As a radio announcer of 40 years, it's something you're not allowed to do on air. You have to confirm the pronunciation of a word before you say it, otherwise the boss goes in and go, what the hell did you call that guy? Well, I don't know what his name is, so please tell us how to pronounce your name. The people who are broke never had a taste of that wealth. That's true. Disagree, poor people will be exploited.
I'm worried, Pete, you might have put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable there.
Whoever you are, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being a part of it. We're going to wrap up shortly. It's 9:45. We usually go for about an hour and a half. Not. But please continue to make comments. We'll let you know when we're ready to wrap it up. Let us know who you are, where you're from. Love getting new people on the podcast. Fenton, of course, we know is a California boy. Although last week, where did he say he was when he called us? Because he said he was 6 hours away from LA. I mean, I know California.
He was up north of it, around. If people know Santa Barbara, it's that broad area. Yeah. It's not Santa Barbara, but if you know Santa Barbara, it's that.
It was somewhere
on the way up to San Fran. It's halfway up, basically.
Okay.
My mum used to love that soapy.
Yeah, Santa Barbara. Yeah, but I went to school in Karratha, so I have zero idea about.
Well, there's a drive up the coast from basically Santa Monica Pier, which is the end of Route 66, I think, or the start of it, whichever one. But there's a coast road that goes all the way up called the Big Sur Coast, and magnificent place to go and visit.
Not so much. No, in the beginning of it's not so much at the moment.
No.
You see Malibu, gone.
Yeah, that's
Pacific Palisades, gone.
It's heartbreaking. It's scary for these people. There.
Unbelievable. Yep.
Yeah, but if you are online, just drop a note saying where you're listening from. It'd be brilliant.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'm trying to work out how we can promote this a little more widely, because, you know, we're kind of, I know it gets a few views during the week and stuff, but it would be awesome to have more people watching live and participating.
Well, you know what would help is if we came up with the topic before, half an hour before we go live. So we can put it out there. Oh, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, if you've got any ideas, we'd love to hear from you as well. While Ro is gone, one of the things that it's incredible to me, because obviously a lot of my thinking is in the sort of church religious realm. I find it utterly bizarre that today in Perth, you could get, you know, they don't tend to use this word in the sort of the church circles I'm from, but excommunicated or disfellowshipped or, you know, whatever, you know, given the right foot of fellowship.
Burn.
Yeah, you know, rejected from a church because you stand up for loving people. You know, if I would stand up in a church and say, no, I think we should genuinely love and welcome and accept people of LGBTQI plus.
But Rich, they're an abomination.
So you can stand and get kicked up because you're standing up for love. Yet you can stand up in that same place, support Trump. And I'm not saying just support Trump in his economics. I'm talking about proper I'm going to use a little T Trump, the awfulness surrounding it. You can actually voice that. You can voice your hatred in the church, and you'll be sort of applauded and welcomed back.
And yet he's the farthest thing for a Christian possible.
What's that?
He's the farthest thing that you can get from a Christian. I mean, he's a liar. He's a bigot. He's a plagiarizer. He's, well, at least at a civil level, he's been accused and found guilty of sexual assault and battery. You know, there's just so much evidence to say that this guy is the epitome of narcissism and, well, all of the things that the church should hate. All of the things. I just don't get it, because he will stand up and say secretly, all right, Project 2025, yeah, good, and anti-abortion. And it seems to me so much of what happened with the US election was about the abortion issue. And that's women then voting against their own bodily rights, their own autonomy. And what is that? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not pro-abortion. I don't believe there is any such thing. I'm pro-choice, which is simply a recognition that that's another human being who I have no control over, and they have the right to do what they want with their own body. Like I've got the right to do what I want with my body. I know it's a contentious issue. But
you know what you want to do on the
basis of that one issue?
Well, you know, for that one issue, I find it bizarre, and I'm speaking from the inside. I've been to meetings in churches in our city around abortion and stuff like that. So this is not hearsay. This is not projecting. I was in the room with church leaders, with the politicians in our country, in our state. And yes, people say we want to stop abortion. So that's what they're saying. But this is where I say I actually don't think you do. I think you're lying to. Most of them are lying to themselves. Some of them are just blatantly lying to get the vote. Liberal politicians who brought your disgusting feet into our church with your lies. Not all liberal politicians, but the ones that did. Anyway.
Even their names are lie, Rich.
So the research shows how we can stop abortion if we want to reduce it. We know how to do it.
Yes.
And it is not making it, criminalizing it. That actually makes it worse. So we know how to reduce it. So if you went through these people and said, okay, we know how, if you want to reduce abortion, we know exactly how to do it. We've got to not criminalize with these other raft of things we do instead. And they go, no, we're not going to do that. That tells me you're more interested in a control over rather than the actual issue, if you're really honest. Because when you say to somebody, I know how to reduce it, and you say, no, we're not going to do that, there's something wrong, utterly wrong. There's a deep lying to yourself that damages yourself. It damages your moral muscles. So that when you look at other issues, you're like stabbing yourself in your moral muscles, and now when it comes time to look at other moral issues, you've hurt yourself.
Thin edge of the wedge
over and over again.
I have an angle I can contribute to this, which may create some questions within you. I have been to an abortion clinic with my partner at the time and been through the whole experience firsthand.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that in defense or in argument of whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. I'm just putting it out there that I have been through that. So if you want to know what that's like and whether that changes your perspective, I wasn't even sure whether it was my child didn't go down that path.
I don't think there's a single woman on earth, Pete, that would actually use abortion as a form of contraception, which I think is a very common accusation.
Yeah. Look, I've got my own opinions on it, which vary because of that, because of my religious background, because of my personal experience. I have issues which I'm not going to go into now because it would just take too long to deal with. What I'd rather do is have a look at the people who are commenting to us. I think the YouTuber Pelagia or his wife YouTuber Shannon Q would possibly join. This was something you were talking about while I wasn't.
Yeah, we were chatting about
in here. They have a big following. Also, there is a YouTuber called Deep Drinks and one called Myth Vision, who both like to, and as Fenton knows, as you guys do, I've tried for some time to get Eve Was Framed onto the podcast, which she initially agreed, but then her life obviously went crazy and she's, wanted all around the world on podcasts and stuff like that. So that's fallen by the wayside, but thank you for that. I will discuss with the guys more about that. Fenton, appreciate it. He followed up with help platform people.
Other people, that's exactly what he's suggesting, yeah.
I think this year we certainly, from my perspective, it's over a year now that since we started this, and Rich and I have talked about trying to make it grow, and neither of us seem to be able to have that kind of knowledge and understanding about how to actually grow this. But if this was what it was, if someone said to me, this is what it's going to be like in 2 years' time, I wouldn't bother with it. It's a lot of work, a lot of input, and I want to get contact with more people and get more out of it and be able to grow it. And I see stuff around the world that grows exponentially because of just what it is. But maybe we're doing something wrong. I'm open. I'm not so arrogant as to think we've got all the answers, because this is the first time. I did this a year ago with Rich. It was him and I. We kicked it off. Had no freaking idea what we were doing and what we were in for. But it grew to a larger thing than what it was as it started. But then it's and it's cruised along to the point where, we'll have a bunch of people joining us, and that's wonderful. But in this world of contact, there's no reason at all, other than we're shit at what we do, that can't get bigger. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard for me because I spent my life in radio, and I've been very successful and very well-rated, popular, if you like, radio announcer. So for me to not get a response in this is frustrating. But I think we present quite a good product. You guys are amazing. It ticks along just quite nicely. We have fantastic people who are involved, but it just seems to have a cap of limitations, and I don't understand why that is.
Yes, part of the problem is, like, how do people find out about it? So there's got to be some element of promotion somewhere, and I'm not sure we've done any of that.
No, but marketing is the heartbeat of every successful business, company, organization, product, or whatever. We need to get it out there, and you kind of think because we're all connected, therefore we're all connected. No, we are all potentially connected, but if you don't connect, there is no connection. So how do we increase that? And Noah has put on saying Noah is okay. Thank you, Noah. I didn't realize there was an alternative spelling, or maybe you've just made it easy for us so that we don't embarrass ourselves.
So we can stop butchering his poor name.
Noah Isaacs, I'm thinking with that name, you'd have to be from either somewhere in Africa or perhaps Trinidad, Tobago, somewhere around there. But great name, Noah. Lovely to have you on board. Thank you. Let us know how you found out. This is a part of what we're talking about, how we find out how people learn about us in existing, and then we can build on that. So how did you hear about us? Did you just stumble across YouTube and find us, and here we go? Because you came in late, if you don't know anything about it, we're just three Aussie blokes. I am not a believer. Rich in over there, he's a believer. Jason is asleep, so don't have to worry about him. You know? He is also a non-believer. We have another guy who's on earlier who's also a non-believer, but Luke, who's also a Christian one-time pastor and stuff. So it's a mixture of just talking about stuff that we all believe in. Hence the name, an atheist, a believer, and a pastor walk into a bar. Just having some fun discussing about things that everyone believes in. Today was a bit of a diversion, if you like, going into Trumpsville, because it's Trump. It's not necessarily based upon our main, not ethos, want another word, talking about belief. But we're happy to keep talking to you guys. If these other two want to go to bed, I'll stay up all night because I'm retired. So I don't know. If you want to stick around and keep talking to us, please let us know what your comments are. Interested.
I am actually going to have to fly though, guys. Would you believe I actually still have some phone calls I've got to make tonight?
What?
Yeah.
To who? About radio?
Yeah. I've got some people who don't finish until this time. So
okay. Well, mate, let us know what's going on with the radio idea that you have about us, and super keen, mate.
It's all moving ahead, mate. It's all moving ahead.
Beautiful.
I should be a little bit careful. Can't say too much, Pete, as you know, but I got to be a little bit careful because I'm discovering there's a few people that might have some issues with what we're up to.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me guess. Channel 9?
Well, I was just going to say, if you imagine that if you're in the commercial world and somebody's going to cut your lunch for you, yeah, they're not going to be happy.
Oh, you didn't think you thought that they were going to welcome you with open arms? Well, that's a surprise.
It's a good job I live a long way away from Perth.
Yeah. Good on you, mate. Thanks for your input tonight, Jace. Really appreciate it, mate. Take care. Cheers.
Catch you guys. See you, right.
Good night.
Yep. Beautiful. All right. So
I am going to be wrapping up myself, but lol, yeah. Noah. I reckon, Noah's probably as close as we're going to get.
What if he realizes he had an art named after him? That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I reckon. But even talking about Trump and this whole sort of phenomena is about belief, but it's about a specific sort of like ideology can be such a driving force, and ideology can drive you beyond your ability to think rationally, to look out for even your own interests, which we've seen a number of people. I've seen a number of people talking about the fallout from the recent election. One of them was a woman younger lady saying she voted for Trump, and now she's horrified to find out that they're cancelling the medical insurance side of things. She says, "I didn't vote for that. I voted for them to get rid of the Obamacare." And her friend was like, "It's the same thing." She's like, "Oh no." And tariffs, all the stuff that Suresh was talking about.
Yeah.
Part of it is, that's why we can't get fixated on the talking points of what people want us to be looking at, because the reason why they're doing it is because if we thought rationally, we may not go down that track. And the only reason they're going to shortcut our rational thought processes is because they're trying to take advantage of us. And I'm not talking about right or left or whatever. I'm talking about anybody. If they don't welcome honest questions and a space and timing to think, my experience shows me that if people are starting to behave that way, they're trying to take something from you. So they slow the roll, a bit, and that's where the ideology. And ideology, the worst thing it does is dehumanizes us. Like at the moment we start treating others as less than human, we actually damage ourselves in that, because you can't attack another person without doing damage to yourself in little ways. And I think that sort of belief system and the ideologies that come across, especially in the sort of hyper partisan politics, is a function of belief that is something that, as you said, I think a lot of it comes out because we're products of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolutionary pressure, and we're not well suited to this. But that means we can't just sort of rest back into our lower nature. Like, we got to stand up. We got to push the more recent parts of our brains and bodies forward. It's hard, but it's what we do.
That's succinct and beautifully put. That is exactly everything you were saying there. Was sort of, I was getting an understanding that one of the reasons why I got into Christianity and was sold the whole thing on the movement through the church and as a collective was that it was fulfilling my natural desire to be kind. Like if you're going through life and you think, I'm pretty tough, pretty strong, like a fight, love smack a guy in the face. The natural place you go is probably to become a bikie and become a Hells Angels member, because then you can fulfill all of the things that are naturally a part of your you. Which for me, from being a person who always believed in kindness and generosity and love and peace and all of that stuff, John Lennon was my hero, give peace a chance and all of that kind of stuff. That was the mantra. So for me to move into that was just completely normal and natural, going, wow, okay, so this is freaky. There's a whole bunch of people. I don't give a shit what you call them, what you label yourself as. They're just nice, and I get it. I'm connected through emotion and similarities and things with other people. It's a beautiful thing. But then after a while, you kind of think that this is not, it's not transformative. It's not, it's not changing. I don't need to change because I already have that heart, already have that desire to help and be generous and be kind. Then you start looking around and going, okay, everyone's just in this flying these flags, but they're actually not all that nice people. They're really, in fact, quite horrible people who are pretending to be lovely, and in their own mind they probably are, because they're flying the Christian flag. But then deep inside you go, well, you're actually a bit of a dick, and I can't understand how you can become a part of this group and not be generous and kind and loving, because I modeled myself on the character of Jesus. And the only thing that matters about the character of Jesus to me was love. My dad just always said, it's all about love. It's all about love. It's all about love. You go, no, there's scriptures and you got to be able to recite Ephesians and they put on the armor and all of that, you know. But it's just about it's about love, and that's what. And I would love to still be a part of that whole thing, but I don't need it. To me, you know, God isn't in me and not with me, so I sense that it's no longer a part of who I am. But the character and the commitment and the love and care for people has never waned for a second through all of that. But it's just the older you get, and maybe not everyone does this, but for me, the older I get, the more confusing and frustrating it is to not be able to live in the world that you think is so easy to create. You know, it's a simple doctrine. Just be nice, be kind, but you can't, because the people who control the world are oligarchs, or they're, you know, filthy rich politicians, and it's so frustrating. It's so annoying that you just can't. Well, you can be nice, you can be positive, you can be generous, you can be all of those things. No one's stopping you from doing that. But if you want to expand it out like we did with this podcast and the reasons to you know, to create it and make it happen, I don't know. It's just it's frustrating. I want to be able to talk to more people about this. You know, for the amount of work that goes into it, it's frustrating not being able to get. My natural character is to be negative, to catastrophize things, and to look at what's wrong with it first before I look at what's right with it. So I'm probably not the best person to talk to as far as building up goes. You know, it's an ongoing. I find that as you're developing your character and your personality, the more you kind of grow it, it's okay. But then the closer you realize you are getting to the end of your life, and you go, I'm going to run out of time to actually create what I want to create.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do know what you mean.
I turned 68, 4 days ago. And, you know, and that's, and I keep thinking about how many people I know who have died at age 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. It's a horrible mindset to get into, because then you think, when is my time? You don't think about when is your time when you're 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 40, nor should you. But the reality is that we all have a short time on this planet, and it's not long enough. And then you suddenly think, wow. But I get moved by people like Fenton and Noah and people deciding to be a part of what it is we're doing, and that's just, it's whatever it blows me away. And you guys who are willing to put in your time to try and make something out of whatever it is that we've created. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's 10 o'clock. Should we wrap it up?
I reckon. Give these good people, if they're in the other side of the world, give them their day ahead. Yeah. Fenton, I know you're getting ready for your day. Hope there's some good tiling waiting for you.
Yeah, I'm going to stick around a little bit after you've gone, just because I can, because I don't work, so I don't have any need to go to bed per se. So if you want to stick around and have a chat about anything at all, I'll give you that opening. If not, I'll just wrap it up, close down. But thanks, Rich. Thanks, everyone, for tonight. Mate. We'll do it again next Wednesday. An atheist, a believer, and a pastor walk into a bar. This is our podcast on belief. Next week, as you might have seen at the beginning of the show, we're going to talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson, who really taken the world by storm with his insights into science and astronomy and all sorts of incredible. He's an amazing man. I watch him regularly. He introduces our show each week. We're going to pull it apart next week and just find out, because he does make a statement which we're interested by, and you're going to see how it all works. And we'll do that from 8 o'clock next Wednesday night, which will be the 29th.
Yeah.
Really? Of January already?
I know. It's done. It's almost done, man.
So, yeah, next Wednesday, 29th of January, Australian Western Standard Time. Look forward to catching up with you then. You can look at all of our episodes, to which there are... We lost count. We lost the number because we went off. I lost my computer, but it's over a year's worth of episodes of the podcast. And if you want to go and check them out, you can do so. So thanks, Rich. Take it easy, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Talk to you next week. Cheers, mate. See ya. And then there was one. So look, if there's anyone who wants to have a chat about anything whatsoever, jump on and have a chat. If you don't, that is absolutely fine. I will I'll wrap it up and go to bed. I don't like going to bed. I really don't. I'm shocking in the morning. I hate getting up. And as much as I hate getting up, I hate going to bed. Days are so short. As you get older, they kind of think, maybe I should go to bed. I'll try going to bed at 9 o'clock, and I can't. I don't sleep. So if you want to talk about music, I'm a musician. I'm a songwriter. I'm a singer. I'm a radio announcer. Fenton. Hang on a sec. What about farting in elevators? Hilarious. Or heinous. Well, it is both. I mean, what an incredible question to ask me. Well, let's open it up. Would you ever fart in an elevator? Absolutely not. I would do anything within my power. If I were Jim Carrey, it would be different. But I would never, ever do that. Now, what I have done, I mentioned before, I was a radio announcer for off and on for 40 years. I've worked in 11 radio stations within the state in which I live, which is Perth, Western Australia. Western Australia is a massive state. Australia is a massive continent. But occasionally in this, can't believe I'm going to tell this story. This is going to backfire and come back and get me. Bodily functions continue even if you're in a studio. So a studio has two doors to come in to cut out the sound. So everything happens in the studio. You can't hear it outside. And more importantly, everything that happens outside of a studio can't be heard in the studio, because otherwise it would go to air. This probably only ever happened twice in my 40-year career, where there's just, an intestinal buildup, and you just have to let it go, and you take the risk of going, now's a good time, there's no one coming. By and large, people are not likely to walk in and out of a studio, especially if you're doing a solo shift like I would be. So there's not another partner, and there's not a producer coming in and out. You're just in there playing songs, talking about the songs and stuff. So you have to let one go. And it smells sometimes. Jeez, I can't believe I'm doing this. And you think, oh my God, if someone walked in now, this would be so embarrassing. So you get up and go out of the studio. So people would come past and go, oh, Robbie's not in there. I won't go and see him. But occasionally you'd get caught out. And no one ever came into the studio, by the way, to experience what I had experienced. So I was lucky, but it was just like, it's a completely natural bodily function. Doesn't mean you're weird or you're wrong or it shouldn't have happened or whatever. But it happens, and sometimes you just have to hope that everything's okay. Thankfully, for the amount of times it did happen, it was okay. I did get away with it. But you go out, once you think you cleared the main area, go to the kitchen, make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever, and come back in and walk in the studio and go, this just smells. Just please don't come in. Sometimes might come in an hour later and you're looking at the face of the person who's coming going, did they actually? Yeah, I reckon they smelt it. It's my office, it's my space. Leave me alone. It's my professional area. Good old Fenton. My favorite radio show would prank each other by inviting women in who passed by right after. That is so funny, but that's so wrong. I'm not a huge prankster. I'm not a big fan of embarrassing people, but I like reading about other people experiencing that. It's just something like we would often have. I don't know whether you guys have it in America or anywhere else in the world. April Fool's Day, for April the 1st. So if you're in radio, you invariably get sucked into a prank. The worst I've ever done is going into the radio station in the morning and taking all of the labels off the doors that said studio, male toilet, female toilet, kitchen, the fat controller's office, which was, where all the money is looked after and stuff like that. I never did it once, and I got found out and got in trouble for doing it. A lot of managers and people in radio don't have a very good sense of humor. But I certainly did that. It's April Fool's Day. But as far as pranks go, I'm not a huge fan of embarrassing people by pranking them. And they do often end in an ugly way. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, I think it was Princess Margaret, not Princess, it was Princess Margaret from Denmark in Western Australia, as it turns out. She had a baby, and don't quote me on this because it's not accurate. Other than the basics are true, that an Australian duo in radio contacted the hospital where the baby was born and spoke to a nurse who was involved. And I can't remember what happened, but they pranked the nurse. And the end result was she actually ended up taking her life because of what happened. Horrible story. Just a great lesson to learn about the potentials of pranking. To the nurse that they pranked, and I can't remember what it was that they did. It wasn't nasty. It just sent something up that they could not possibly have imagined would happen. And she took her life. That was the end of those people, the young woman and the young guy, their radio career. And they were from Australia. Seemed innocent. How could it possibly go wrong? And it did, in the worst possible way, which, people might say I'm a bit of an old stick in the mud, but I'm not a fan. I think it always has the potential to be dangerous and for something to happen that you didn't plan. 9 times out of 10, it might be okay. So I've never actually ever pranked anyone. I find, not a fan. There's risk, but bad risk. There is good risk Very few amazing things will you ever achieve in your life without taking a risk. I have lived my life being asked to do stuff that I'm not qualified to do, and I've said, yes, I will do that, and then I've learned how to do it, and it's never backfired on me. So that kind of risk is okay, and it's fairly safe, but there are other risks. It's just not worth it. So Fenton, I don't know whether you're about to head off. It's 6:15, 10 Perth time right now, which would make it probably around about 4:45, a bit after your well, actually probably a bit closer to 5:30 your time in California. If you've got any more to add, want to have a yarn about anything, that's fine. Anyone else out there listening on YouTube, an atheist, a believer, and a pastor walk into a bar every Wednesday night, Australian Western Standard Time. We've talked about all sorts of stuff over a 12-month period. It's very interesting. Really enjoy it. If you want to be a part of it, please jump on right now. Otherwise, I'm going to probably say goodnight and wrap it up. I wish I could play. I can't play the intro, can I? It's of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the claimant. It's how we intro every one of our podcasts. Him talking on the question being asked, "Do you believe in God?" and saying, "Believe God is all good or all powerful." Then he sees childhood leukemia and disasters and stuff, and asks the question, God is either all good or all powerful, but fails to see the happening at the same time. So we decided we were going to talk about that, which we're going to do tonight, but then the whole Trump thing came up. So we're going to do that next Wednesday night, because Luke and Rich, who are the two Christians in our group, aren't convinced that what Neil deGrasse says. So what I want to find out about is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a scientist. He's an incredibly intelligent, educated, smart man. Has he got it wrong? They may believe that he has. So I want to look into that and find out whether or not he is wrong about that promise that Christians believe that God has made, that he is all love and he is all powerful. So anyway, so we're going to talk about that next Wednesday. A parting comment from Benton, I do believe. Yeah, I've got to start running around. It's 6:30. Geez, I was way out. Thanks for the show. Thank you, mate. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, being a part of our podcast, and certainly for helping us out last week. It was wonderful. And have a good day, mate. 6:30. Yeah. I think he gets up about 4 o'clock in the morning, which is amazing. Not to be a part of our podcast, I dare say, but that's what time he likes to get up and go to work. So thanks for everyone that contributed, was listening tonight. Really appreciate your input, or just knowing the fact that you're out there listening to us. We'll do it again next Wednesday. Right here live on YouTube. My name's Rowie. You can call me Rowie if you like. Peter Rowe. I'm the host of the podcast, An Atheist, a Believer, and a Pastor Walk into a Bar. Thanks again for your help. Have a wonderful Thursday, which will be a Wednesday, depending on where you are. Certainly in the mighty US of A, it'll be a Wednesday because we're a day ahead. Someone said the other day, Australia's a day ahead of America. Why don't we just ask them what's going to happen? Not very bright. Anyway. It's true. Someone did say that. Australia is one day ahead of America. Let's just talk to them and they can tell us what's going to happen. doesn't quite work that way. Thank you so much for your company. Have a wonderful Thursday or whatever day it is. Catch you next Wednesday. Catch ya. See ya.